Is that the future of the WNBA? Getting shut down, closed for good. See you later. Thank you. Come again. The owners doing their best in negotiations. The owners seem like they're coming to the negotiation tables with good faith. Yeah, we'll boost up the minimum salary. We'll quadruple the maximum salary. There'll be an average salary of around $500,000. Yeah, we're going to be taking away some housing, but for the 7-day contracts, you guys.
This feels like one of those moments where everyone swears they're holding all the cards, then suddenly realizes the deck is missing. Big threats, intense meetings, serious expressions, and somehow the ending still lands in complete silence. Something was supposed to rock the league, flip the table, change everything. Instead, it hit like a group chat notification, everyone already muted. Stay locked in, because when confidence, money, and reality finally collide, the irony becomes impossible to miss.
The news that the WNBA players had authorized a strike when necessary. So just to get you guys up to speed there, 93% of the players participated in the vote. So 93% of players in the WNBA. And how many is that? Could we do the math? I believe that there's 166 WNBA players times 0.93. Is that right? So 154 players voted and 3 players. So only 3 players voted no to the authorization of a strike, which means the rest of the players said, if things start getting crazy, go ahead, you guys. You guys can call a strike and we'll just see where.
It all begins with that special kind of confidence that only exists before reality walks into the room. Loud statements, heavy energy, endless talk about leverage, power, unity, and history in the making. You could almost hear dramatic background music swelling, like a movie trailer promising chaos and revolution.
Players, they're refusing to compromise. They're refusing to budge off this revenue share model. And how long is it going to take until the owners just say, we tried, this isn't even worth the headache anymore. We tried, this just isn't even worth the headache anymore. And now you have the players authorizing a strike. Alexa Falupa with ESPN came out with an article, and a certain line stuck out to me, making it seem like these players are going to wait till the last minute and break up with the league before the league breaks up.
This was meant to be the moment, the turning point, the line in the sand. Except the sand turned out to be concrete, and the line was drawn with invisible ink. Strike authorization gets announced like a launch code. Headlines start acting like the league is about to be wrapped in caution tape and shut down for good.
Yes. The league wants to pay themselves first before they pay us. So, and when they pay themselves, stay with me. When they pay themselves, it leaves less than 30%
for us to spread.
Us. No, to split with them. So they want to pay themselves first, and then what's left of whatever is left, they want us to split with them. They want us to split that with them, which leaves less than 15%.
Social media fills with victory laps before the race even starts. Players are painted as master strategists moving pieces like chess grandmasters. Owners are framed as nervous billionaires clutching spreadsheets in panic. And then nothing. No explosion. No shutdown. The league keeps running. Games stay on the schedule. Checks still clear. Fans still show up. The so-called apocalypse invitation somehow gets lost in the mail.
WNBA proposed a deal that featured like a significant salary increase. And everybody was like, yes, this is what we're talking about. The WNBPA was not moved by this proposal because it didn't feature a system where player salaries and the salary cap would grow as business does. Mm-hmm. So they're like, so you're just going to set us up for another stagnant like glass ceiling. And then we grow even more with all these expansion teams and all this other revenue that's going to be coming in and other deals and other future big players. And then we're going to be in this situation.
Owners arrive at the table doing the corporate version of yoga, bending into positions nobody asked for. Minimum salaries climb. Maximum salaries shoot into another universe. The average paycheck starts looking like science fiction compared to a few years ago. And yet, it's still not enough, because one phrase hasn't been granted. revenue sharing. That's the sacred hill. Everything else can stretch, shift, and move, but that demand is treated like it came down on stone tablets. No compromise. No discussion. Just conviction. All while the league keeps doing what it's always done, losing money with clockwork consistency. Decades of red ink. Decades of subsidies. Decades of being supported by a bigger sibling quietly picking up the tab. But now the story is being told like this is a hidden gold mine guarded by villains. And then comes the dramatic gesture. Strike authorization. Not an actual strike. Not even a date. Just permission to possibly, maybe, someday do something serious. The labor version of shaking your fist at the sky and saying, we could make this ugly if we really wanted to.
They're not really working right now. So it's like, I get that they can call a strike, but it's off season. Do you know what I mean? The players issuing a strike would definitely, I feel like, be more effective during the season, which would be wild if they did it during the season. But if you guys remember, like when Nafisa Collier came out and said what she had to say about Kathy Engelbert, and then they were directly going into the WNBA finals, like that would have been a time if they wanted to just send a huge statement. Like they could have they could have issued the strike then, and that would have been crazy because that would have messed up so many things, and that would have been such a bold move. I'm not saying it would have been the right move, but it would have been a very bold move to do it.
Here's the part that's almost impressive in its absurdity. Both sides already have the nuclear option. Either side can walk away. Negotiations can end at any moment. There's already a ticking clock. There's already an expiration date. So, threatening a strike in that context is like threatening to slam the door when the house is already on fire and everyone's already standing outside. It sounds powerful in a press release. It looks bold on social media. But functionally, it's just noise. Semantic gymnastics for people who confuse leverage with volume. And then there's the power structure. Not the whole player pool. Not the full group whose livelihoods are supposedly on the line. 7 people. 7 out of more than 150. A tiny committee holding the keys to the entire operation, like handing nuclear codes to a group chat and hoping nobody gets bored. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. At least a couple of those decision makers happen to have very comfortable escape hatches. Competing ventures. New leagues. Equity stakes. Ownership-adjacent dreams. Funny how collapse feels less terrifying when you already have a lifeboat with your name stitched on it. Suddenly, strike authorization doesn't look like unity. It looks like optional chaos. A button you can press if the universe doesn't deliver exactly what you ordered.
Letting us know that the Indiana Fever's PG1 is pushing hard for a compromise, stating that the players must play next season. If we go a little further into the article though, Kelsey Plum, the first VP of the PA, is quoted saying that the negotiation talks have been pretty disheartening and that there's frustration in the negotiation process because of how far away they are. She does go on to say though that she is very proud of her coworkers for remaining united throughout all of this and making sure that they all stand together.
But again, if both sides can already walk away, what does this actually accomplish? It's like announcing you're going to block someone who unfollowed you 3 weeks ago. Congratulations. You've won a battle that doesn't exist. Ask what would actually trigger a strike, and the answer becomes conveniently vague. Too early to say. Check back closer to the deadline. Translation: when the deal is already dead anyway. So the big scary threat is scheduled for the exact moment it no longer matters. That's not leverage. That's procrastination with a megaphone. Then comes the accidental honesty. Everything is workable except one thing: revenue sharing. That's the hill, the non-negotiable, which is fascinating because revenue sharing implies revenue, not projected hype, not future buzz. Actual money coming in the door. This league has spent most of its existence operating like a charity with jerseys. One season of mainstream attention, sparked largely by one player dragging eyeballs into the building, and suddenly everyone's talking like they've been sitting on a gold mine this whole time. That's not confidence. That's mistaking a spark for a furnace.
Players receive approximately 50% of the league's basketball-related income. 50% of all of the money that the National Basketball Association brings in regards to basketball goes to the players, the people who put the leagues on their back and the league would be nothing without NBA players, okay? So they deserve that money, if not more. WNBA players currently receive about 9.3% of the league's revenue.
This is how bubbles start. People who actually understand sports business are looking at this moment like sharks smell blood. No CBA. Uncertainty everywhere. Technically, everyone's a free agent. If you've ever wanted to launch a rival league, this is the perfect storm. Promise stability. Offer money. Scoop up talent while the old structure argues about future profits that don't yet exist. And here's the truth nobody likes to say out loud. If it folded, the world would keep spinning. Fans would find something else to watch in about 48 hours. This isn't the NFL. It's not even the NHL. It's a niche product that finally tasted relevance and immediately tried to spend it all at once. Expansion fees get paraded like proof of health. But at some point, it starts to look less like growth and more like a shell game. New money justifying old losses. Optimism doing the job profits never did. And the media wraps it all in inspirational language, so no one has to look too closely at the math.
We all know that when Caitlin Clark says anything, it carries a lot of weight. I think that's important to keep in mind as we kind of break down her comments on the CBA.
I took them as very metered comments. It's also important to remember she just finished her second year in the WNBA. She's going to be 24 in January. She's still very young. And there are a lot of players, a lot of young players I talked to and have talked to this year who are making the same kind of non-comments about it, who are just saying they're learning from the older generation.
She said, quote, "This is the biggest moment that the WNBA."
Nobody's saying players shouldn't chase money. If Europe pays more, go. If a new league offers better terms, take them. That's capitalism. Fighters change promotions. Soccer players chase contracts. Workers leave jobs every day for higher pay. What doesn't make sense is demanding elite revenue splits from a business that has never generated elite revenue. You don't get NBA economics just because you share a logo font. You don't get Premier League money just because you play the same sport. The public reaction has been the most honest part of all this. Owners won't care if it folds. Most fans won't either. You can't hoard what doesn't exist. Someone even joked about giving players 100% of the profits, which is hilarious because it assumes there are profits to give. That's the core irony. Everyone's fighting over a pie that's still in the oven, arguing about slice sizes while the kitchen's on fire. The strike vote becomes a symbol not of strength, but of impatience, of confusing momentum with stability, of mistaking headlines for balance sheets.
Obviously, look, we're talking about this and we're looking at this in a whole different scenario. And who knows, maybe the players will try to force their hand. The one thing we know is the league is never going to budge on the revenue split thing. Basically, especially the way it sounds like the players want the revenue split to be done. I think everybody has like every insider has spoken about it, and they're like, the way the players want the revenue split done is never.
If this collapses, it won't be because of sexism, conspiracies, or shadow villains. It'll be because expectations sprinted past reality and nobody wanted to be the adult in the room saying, maybe we slow down. This isn't a revolution. It's a staring contest where both sides are daring the other to blink, forgetting the table itself might disappear. The quiet tragedy is that none of this had to be dramatic. Incremental growth. Realistic timelines. Deals based on what exists, not what people hope might exist someday. That path was always there. But patience doesn't trend. Moderation doesn't go viral. Threats do. Oh, now we wait. For deadlines. For statements. For carefully worded disappointment. For the moment someone realizes that leverage isn't about how loud you shout. It's about how much the other side needs you. And right now, that need is a lot smaller than the rhetoric suggests, because when walking away is already on the table, when alternatives are lining up in the background, and when a strike would change very little, bravado starts to look less like confidence and more like denial. If this survives, it'll be despite this moment, not because of it. And if it doesn't, the collapse won't be sudden. It'll be the predictable result of confusing attention with value, momentum with money, and unity with unanimity.
can be messed up. We're going to fight for everything that we deserve, but at the same time, we need to play basketball. The players view this as the most pivotal point in the WNBA. The players deserve more compensation than what they are getting with the amount of economic growth of the league. But if we're going to get to a point where we miss basketball games, that damages the league. I'm with Caitlin there. The most important thing is playing basketball and also getting these negotiations.
Either way, the lesson ends up being the same. You can't negotiate with vibes. You can't split revenue that doesn't exist. And you definitely can't threaten to burn down the house when you don't own the land. What this moment really proves isn't that players lack power. It's that power has to be used with precision, not theatrics. Not that strike authorization is meaningless in theory, but that it becomes meaningless when it's treated like a branding exercise instead of a last resort. Not that the league is doomed, but that internal miscalculations can be more dangerous than any external enemy. The season rolls on. The headlines move on. The panic fades. And what's left is a quiet lesson buried underneath a very loud announcement. You can't bluff your way into prosperity. You can't demand stability while threatening instability. And you can't scare a growing league into submission when the audience is finally showing up. In the end, the takeaway isn't really about greed or strikes or negotiations. It's about reality. Reality doesn't care about dramatic framing. It doesn't care about social media applause. It cares about numbers, timing, and follow-through. And when those don't line up, even the loudest threats dissolve into background noise. The collapse everyone warned about never comes. Not because the system is perfect, but because the threat was hollow. And in proving that, the whole episode becomes less of a power play and more of a cautionary tale, a reminder that in sports, just like in life, you don't win by yelling, checkmate. You win by actually playing the board.
Possibility that a work stoppage happens in a way of like they go on strike in January and then there's a CBA finished in March, which, look, there's always a chance of happening. There is always going to be a chance of something along the lines of that happening, because at the end of the day we are looking at situations where if maybe like it gives them their real chance to negotiate. It gives them their real negotiating power. If it's like, look, we'll do it. We'll go.
And that's the part nobody likes to say out loud. Ownership of the ground matters, because this isn't a pickup run at a neighborhood gym. This is a business that has survived on patience, subsidies, and the long hope that one day the math would finally add up. Patience, however, is not endless, and hope never shows up on a balance sheet. What makes this standoff almost comical is how convinced everyone suddenly is that the league is untouchable. Like one hot stretch erased decades of red ink. Like investors, networks, and owners all forgot what the books look like because the vibes are good right now. That's not how reality works. Momentum is fragile. Attention is rented, not owned. And sports fans, more than anyone, move on fast when the product disappears. Even briefly, strike authorization gets sold as strength, but it's really a bluff with no cards behind it. The clock keeps ticking, talks keep dragging, and everyone pretends this is a high-level chess match when it's closer to musical chairs, and there are fewer seats than people want to admit. When the music stops, some players will land safely in overseas leagues, rival ventures, or new opportunities. Others won't. That part never makes it into the press release. And the owners? They aren't exactly shaking. They've already lived through years of empty arenas, low ratings, and quiet seasons where nobody complained because nobody was watching. They've already written checks with no promise of return. The idea of going back to that, or even walking away entirely, isn't the nightmare it's framed to be. If anything, it simplifies the picture.
Is renegotiating their CBA, their collective bargaining agreement. And basically what that means is it's the paper that governs everything that happens around the WNBA regarding childcare, what happens when someone gets pregnant, regarding salary, regarding travel flights, everything that happens in the WNBA is outlined by this collective bargaining agreement, and they are currently renegotiating it, and it is a huge deal. And if the WNBA players decide this negotiation is going nowhere, they can decide to do a lockout, which means they can decide to basically go on
The irony is that the league is closer to real stability now than it has ever been, and this is the exact moment chosen to push everything to the brink. Instead of locking in progress, the strategy feels like daring the whole structure to blink. That's not confidence. That's impatience wearing the mask of principle. And when people say this could all fall apart over greed, it isn't an insult, it's an observation. Greed isn't always about wanting more than everyone else. Sometimes it's about wanting everything immediately, without regard for timing, context, or consequence. It's about confusing opportunity with entitlement. If this unravels, there won't be a cartoon villain to blame. There will just be a trail of decisions that made sense on their own and became disastrous together. Moments where compromise was treated as weakness and caution as betrayal. The league doesn't need ultimatums. It doesn't need symbolic threats. It needs people who understand that growth is uneven and leverage has to be real, not imagined. Because once you pull the pin on a grenade, it doesn't matter how symbolic you meant the gesture to be, and if a collapse ever comes, it won't be loud. It will be quiet. A season quietly canceled. A deal quietly delayed. A few stars quietly leaving. Fans quietly finding something else to watch. And years later, people will argue online about how it all went wrong, acting like the warning signs weren't obvious. Because when you treat a fragile present like a guaranteed future, reality eventually steps in, corrects the math, and reminds everyone that it doesn't negotiate.